Hey there. If you've had a long day, you're in the right place. This is your quiet corner of the internet where nothing is expected of you except to rest. Tonight, I'll be reading you a long, winding Reddit story. It's full of emotions, secrets, and little twists, the kind of tale you can slowly drift off to. You don't need to keep track of every detail. Just let the words wash over you. Let your eyes get heavy, and before you know it, you'll be asleep. So tuck in, get comfortable, and let's begin. I never thought I would find myself on Reddit, but here I am, typing my story under the Am I the Asshole forum, hoping to untangle a mess that feels more convoluted than my own thoughts. It's a long story, one I wish I didn't have to share, but if you're reading this, it means something's been weighing heavily on my heart, and maybe you'll help me see it clearly. Let me set the stage. I'm Chloe, 33, happily married for the last decade to Mark. We built a simple, yet rewarding life together. There are no grand tales of tragedy or triumph worth sharing, just the everyday struggles and victories that make our journey what it is. But life took an unexpected twist this past year when my younger sister Grace re-entered our lives. Grace is 24, vivacious, and full of dreams. But unlike me, she has always chosen to chase after the whims of her heart rather than the stability of life. That was part of her charm, I suppose. Sadly, that spontaneity took a darker turn when she decided to quit her stable job to pursue a fleeting career in art. She took to the streets of our city, selling quirky paint splashes and bizarre sculptures, each piece vibrant and full of life, but ultimately not selling enough to support her. To make matters worse, just when I thought her decisions couldn't become more reckless, Grace moved, in with her boyfriend Leo, who had a penchant for living in the moment, often at the expense of future security. He was charming and charismatic, but the longer they dated, the less steady Grace became. Eventually, their relationship unraveled, with Leo abruptly breaking up with her in a fit of uncertainty while she was still in the afterglow of chasing her dreams. It was hard to watch Grace pick up her pieces, but she refused to come home. I don't need you to feel sorry for me, Chloe, she had said through gritted teeth during one of our calls. I'll figure things out. But she wasn't figuring anything out. She wasn't even answering my calls anymore. Then came the day when everything spiraled out of control. One evening, I was settled on the couch with a bowl of popcorn, sharing a moment with Mark while watching our favorite show when I received a text. It was from an unknown number. Chloe, I'm in trouble. I need help. My stomach dropped. I didn't even have to know who it was. I knew it was Grace. I grabbed my purse before Mark even had the chance to ask where I was going. The night air was thick with humidity as I rushed down the familiar streets to the dingy apartment complex where Grace had been living. Each step felt heavier, dread pooling in my gut. When I finally reached her door, I hesitated, a wave of indecision crashing over me. But there was a frantic tapping from inside, then a muffled sound of sobbing. I knocked frantically and called out her name. Moments later, Grace opened the door, her makeup running and her eyes barely recognizable amidst the disarray. She looked so small, so lost. Chloe, she whispered, collapsing against the threshold. I blinked back tears, enveloping her in my arms, and that's when I noticed the chaos around us. Empty bottles scattered across the coffee table, clothes strewn about, and a faint smell of stale smoke lingering in the air. What happened? I asked, my voice shaking. It's Leo. He left me. Money is tight. I don't have anywhere else to go. She burst out through her tears. I could feel her despair seep into my skin like poison. Logic kicked in. Okay, let's go home, I urged gently. But Grace recoiled, shaking her head. No, I can't go back there. It's humiliating. I should have done better. No one is judging you, Grace. You'll be fine, I promise. I didn't expect deep-seated resentment to rise within me, but it did. I wanted to scream at her for making such reckless choices, for refusing to see the help so readily available to her. Instead, I simply led her out of her apartment, ushering her towards my car. Once we were home, I could feel the tension thickening the air. Mark was confused. He was always the peaceful anchor of our little world. "Where's she going? To sleep?" he asked quietly as we settled at our dining table, Grace drifting into silence as if her spark had dimmed. "In the guest room, for now," I replied, biting my lip. Grace scoffed under her breath. "I'm not staying here for long. I'll find my way." But the next morning I woke to find her sitting at the dining table, staring blankly at her half-eaten bowl of cereal. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was watching the light leave her gradually. After a week of feeling unsettled, I decided to confront her. "Are you going to tell me what's going on with you? Because this isn't sustainable," I urged. "What do you want me to say?" Grace's voice wailed, filled with an unexpected resentment. "That I should have played it safe like you? You think I don't know what I should have done? I can't live your life." Mark intervened, his tone calm, yet firm. "Chloe just wants to help you, Grace. You can't ignore this just because it's uncomfortable." And there it was, the divide between us, deeper than I anticipated. We spent hours trying to bridge that gap, cooking together, laughing uneasily at old memories, but nothing seemed to work. The tension stayed, and I couldn't help but feel that by bringing Grace into our home, I had opened the floodgates to resentment. One night, after an outburst where Grace accused me of undermining her independence, one which struck me to the core, I needed to vent. I logged onto Reddit, creating an anonymous post titled "Aita" for bringing my struggling sister into my home. It felt freeing, though the terror of opening up to strangers gnawed at me. I explained everything: the frustrations, the financial strain, and my attempts to give her space while she was there. I watched anxiously as comments poured in, some supporting me, saying I was trying to help, and others accusing me of stifling Grace's independence. Each notification felt like a stab from a truth I was struggling to accept. But amidst the noise, one particular comment resonated. Help doesn't always mean rescuing someone from the consequences of their choices. Sometimes it means supporting their choices, even the bad ones. That comment stung. I had been so focused on saving Grace from herself that I hadn't considered allowing her to make mistakes. Would she learn from them if I constantly stepped in as her safety net? My dilemma worsened when Mark approached me the next evening. "Thanks for letting Grace stay, but we need to talk," he started, his tone grave. "She's not addressing any of her problems. If we allow this to keep going, we might grow resentful of her." "You don't understand, Mark. I can't just turn my back on her," I replied, my voice rising in panic. "I'm not asking you to turn your back, but we can't be her lifeboats. She needs to learn how to swim on her own." As days turned into weeks, the argument seemed to echo more in the dark corners of our home. I had provided a roof over Grace's head, but it felt more like a cage than a sanctuary. I kept the door open for her to find her footing, yet she still remained stuck in her past, mired in regret and anger. I thought inviting her home would be a way to create a nurturing refuge, but it turned into a chasm between siblings, one I was terrified I'd never be able to bridge. I realized I was constrained not just by the physical space in our shared home, but by the fear of the future. If Grace remained as she was, would she forever blame me for stopping her from chasing her dreams? After weeks of those thoughts swirling unproductively in my mind, I reached a breaking point. One rainy night, as I was about to crawl into bed, I heard the faint sounds of sniffling from Grace's room. Hesitantly, I knocked on the door. "Can I come in?" I asked softly. "Yeah." I stepped inside, warily sitting next to her on the bed. "What's going on?" I don't know what to do anymore," she admitted, tears rolling down her cheeks. "I feel so lost." I sat there with her in silence, absorbing her pain. Finally, I spoke. I can't give you answers, Grace. You have to figure that out for yourself. She nodded slowly, burying her head in her hands, and I caught glimpses of her vulnerability amidst the chaos of her choices. For the first time, I recognized that saving her wasn't something I could do. I wanted to help, but I couldn't save her from herself. It was a delicate realization, one laced with both dread and hope. What if I just moved out? She asked suddenly, looking up at me. What if I found my own apartment, got my own job and figured it all out? My heart tightened at her honesty, feeling that familiar pang of guilt melded with pride. That would be okay, actually, I said slowly. I think you'd thrive if you were in control of your choices. Just that moment brought light back in her eyes. Following that conversation, I watched as she began to pick up the pieces. It wasn't always a smooth journey. She had setbacks, lost her way again. But there was something mooring about the realization that I had to let her be her own person. Eventually, Grace moved out, back into her own small apartment, where she would fill her days with the chaos of adulting. As time came for her to explore her passions and failures, I pulled back, focusing on my own life as well, cherishing the new space that opened up. One where I was no longer weighed down by the burden of rescuing someone who didn't truly want to be saved. The distance didn't feel like abandonment. It felt like freedom. We began to rebuild our relationship, one where our individual struggles were accepted rather than scrutinized. And, inexplicably, I realized I was no longer the savior in her life, but rather her witness. Weeks later, I received a message from Grace. I sold a painting today. I just wanted you to know. I think I might really be doing this. Tears welled as I read her words. Not tears of burden, but tears of pride. AETA for telling my sister. She needs to get her life together. It's funny how a single moment can be the catalyst for a family feud. I never imagined that the words I carelessly uttered at my sister Lily's birthday party would lead to the unraveling of the already frayed fabric of our family dynamic. But let me start from the beginning. I'm Sarah, the older sister, and at 31, I consider myself fairly grounded. I've got my career as a marketing manager, a small but cozy apartment in the city, and a close-knit group of friends who feel more like family to me. My life has been a series of steady climbs, with hard work paving the way for small victories. In contrast, Lily, my 29-year-old sister, has always been the free spirit, the wildflower that danced wherever. The wind took her. She had dreams of becoming an artist, but those dreams often morphed into whimsical turns of fortune, an impulsive move to Barcelona, a sudden passion for photography, and most recently, a short-lived relationship with a musician who she swore was going to change her life. I can't deny that I love Lily dearly. We grew up playing in our parents' backyard, crafting wild scenarios for our future selves. But as the years went by, I noticed that her dreams remained dreams, while I was busy building a life. The birthday party was a warm evening in late June, filled with laughter, the smell of barbecue, and a cacophony of voices. Family and friends mingling together. Our parents, bless them, had gone all out for Lily's birthday. The decorations sparkled with a youthful vibrance, and the sentiment in the air was infectious. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue across everything, I watched my sister flit from one group to another, wine in hand, and a bright smile plastered on her face. My heart swelled with pride for her free spirit, but deep down, I couldn't shake the nagging worry. When was she going to settle down? When was she going to stop chasing after dreams she wasn't fully committed to? After a few too many glasses of white wine, I found myself cornered by my parents, both wearing identical expressions of concern. Have you talked to Lily lately about her plans? My mum asked, her voice laced with worry. What plans? I replied, glancing back at Lily, who had just spilled wine all over her new, artistic dress. She has none. It's like she's floating through life without any direction. I felt a gentle touch on my shoulder and turned to see Lily standing there, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "Hey, what are you two conspiring about?" "Your future," I quipped, a hint of sarcasm in my voice, but my intent didn't quite land as I envisioned. "Oh, bring it on, Sarah. What's your grand plan for me? Settle in the suburbs with a picket fence?" "Actually, yes. At some point, maybe you should consider a stable job and a stable life," I joked, half-heartedly. Lily, however, did not take it as a joke. "You know that's not me. Why would you want me to be like you? Just because your life has a formula doesn't mean mine has to." "Maybe I want you to be happy," I shot back, my patience wearing thin. We stood facing each other, the tension palpable, the laughter around us fading into the background. Happy? Or just like you? Because I'm not like you, Sarah. I'm not going to wear a suit and sit behind a desk all day. Okay, let me rephrase, I said, crossing my arms protectively over my chest. I want you to get your life together. It was a moment of truth, one that slipped out of my mouth before I could catch it. At that moment, I saw the flicker of hurt cross her face. "Wow, thanks for the support," she said, her voice cutting through the warm air like a chill wind. The party continued around us, but an invisible curtain had dropped, separating us from the celebration. "I'm just saying, life is too short to waste time," I shouted, my voice louder than I intended, and suddenly, all heads were turned towards us. Lily's eyes glistened, and she took a breath that shook her whole frame. "I'll waste my time however I choose, Sarah. You're not my mother." "True, but I'm your sister who cares about you," I retorted. The crowd turned back to their conversations, but I could see in the corner of my eye my parents' disapproving glances. The rest of the evening was a blur of polite smiles and awkward conversations. I replayed the words we exchanged like a broken record. Did I go too far? Did I imply that her life was lesser than mine? By the end of the night, she stormed off, leaving me at our parents' house, feeling like a bull in a china shop. The disappointment on their faces was clearer than any words they could utter. That night, the silence in our family felt suffocating. The following days were tense. I thought about reaching out to her, but sources of pride on both sides held me back. I considered calling, but each time I picked up the phone, I hesitated. I was afraid of her response, afraid that I had damaged our relationship beyond repair. 2 weeks later, I finally received a text from her. "Hey, can we talk?" My heart raced. It was odd to see her being so straightforward. I replied quickly, my fingers moving faster than my thoughts. "Of course. When?" We arranged to meet at our favorite cafe, the one where we used to sit for hours, sharing dreams and aspirations over steaming cups of coffee. As the day approached, my stomach twisted in knots. Doubts crawled into my mind like unwelcome guests to a party, and I couldn't shake the question, had I ruined everything? When I arrived at the cafe, Lily was already seated, her eyes fixed on the swirling patterns of her cappuccino. She looked different. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she wore a tank top with a bold print, the kind that made her seem more rebellious than ever. "Hey," I said hesitantly, sliding into the chair across from her. "Hey," she replied, the word heavy with unsaid thoughts. The silence between us stretched, each passing second a reminder of the tension that lingered after the party. I took a deep breath, breaking the ice. "I'm sorry about what I said that night. I didn't mean it the way it came out." Lily looked up at me, her gaze penetrating. "You know, I've been thinking about what you said more than I want to admit," she began. "You think you're so much better than me because you have this career and an apartment. But you're living under this relentless pressure of expectations. It's suffocating. I'm actually happy with my decisions, even if they don't look like yours." She had a point. But my worries came from a place of love. How could she not see that? "I just want what's best for you, Lily," I insisted, my voice a touch defensive. "I worry that you're drifting through life without direction." "That's such an old-school mindset, Sarah," she countered. "Not everyone needs to fit into your mold of happiness. I want to create and experience life in my way, even if it seems chaotic. Is chaos really happiness? I asked, doubting every word I spoke. Sometimes. Maybe not for you, but trust me, it is for me. We locked eyes for a moment, a silent battle raging between the need for understanding and the walls we had both built. It was in that shared gaze that I saw the wariness of my sister's heart, a heart that yearned for validation, yet resented the notion that it needed a map. Our conversation shifted over the next hour, from family gossip to personal aspirations, all while dodging the elephant in the room. Finally, it was Lily who broached the subject again. "Do you really think I need to have my life together?" she asked softly. "What does that even mean?" "It means that you start a career, settle down, maybe find someone you can share your life with," I offered. "I mean, isn't that what everyone in their 30s is supposed to do?" "So you think I failed because I haven't done that?" Her voice cracked, and suddenly I could feel the anger and sadness surging through her. "I never said that, but you implied it," she cut in. "And that night at the party, I thought having a sister would mean someone who gets me. I thought you'd be supportive, not judgmental." It was a bitter pill to swallow. She was right. I failed to see the individual behind the artist. "I was trying to be supportive, Lily, but I guess it came out wrong. I don't want you to feel like I'm judging you." "Then stop worrying about me and my choices. You can have your life, and I can have mine." Relief washed over me. "Lily, I don't want to make you feel pressured to change. You're my sister, and I love you for who you are." She smiled then, and it was softer than I had seen in days. "Thanks, Sarah." As we left the cafe, the sun hung low in the sky, bathing the world in hues of gold and orange. It felt like we were stepping back into the uncomplicated days of our childhood, where imagination took the front seat to obligation. Though I learned that day that life didn't have to look a certain way to be valid, the process of understanding took time that I was willing to invest. And although our family dynamic didn't magically resolve, the fissures that night had caused began to heal. I learned that holding space for someone didn't mean you had to carry their burdens. It just meant walking beside them, even in the chaos. Lily and I found our rhythm again, and while we may not always see eye to eye, we became each other's champions. Encouragingly, I thought maybe we both just needed to get our lives together, in our unique ways. So, was I the asshole? No. But I learned that it's not always about right or wrong. Sometimes it's just about love and understanding. And as for being a sister, well, that was still my greatest and most rewarding role of all. Am I the a-hole for choosing my hospitalized mother over my wedding? I'm Mark, a 28-year-old guy, and I've always prided myself on being close to my family. My mum, in particular, has been my rock since I was a kid. She raised me as a single mother after my dad left when I was young. We didn't have much, but we had each other, and that made all the difference in the world. Our bond has only strengthened over the years, so when the news came that she was diagnosed with a late-stage illness, my entire world felt like it was unraveling. I was in the midst of planning my wedding to Ava, my college sweetheart. We had been together for nearly 6 years, and everything seemed to be falling into place. We had booked our dream venue, sent out invitations, and even finalized the catering. But life has a way of throwing curveballs just when you think you've got it all figured out. A few months ago, I received a call from my mother's doctor. I didn't recognize the number, but when I picked up, I heard the panic in the doctor's voice. "Mark, I need to talk to you about your mother's condition." I felt the ground shift beneath me. I listened, heart racing, as he explained that her illness had progressed far more quickly than anticipated. They had done everything they could, but she only had weeks left. Immediately, I dropped everything. I rushed to the hospital, my head spinning with the implications. My phone buzzed repeatedly with texts from Ava and my wedding planner, asking where I was. I knew I had to respond, but all I could think about was my mum lying in that hospital bed, fighting her battle alone. As I arrived, the hospital felt suffocating. The sterile smell, the harsh fluorescent lights, the sad silence. It felt too serious for the chaos I felt inside. I found my mother in her room, frail and weak, the vibrant woman who had always been full of life, now reduced to a shadow of herself. I held her hand, and it was then I knew that I had made the right choice. Over the next few days, I stayed by my mother's side. We talked late into the night, reminiscing about our life together, laughing at old memories, and, inevitably, crying over the realization that time was slipping away. It dawned on me how important these moments were. I didn't want to regret missing time with her when it mattered most. Meanwhile, messages from Ava turned into phone calls. When I didn't respond for a few days, she finally showed up at the hospital. I could tell she was upset, which made sense. We had a wedding to prepare for. When I explained my mother's situation, her expression softened, but the tension was palpable. "Mark, I understand, but we have a wedding to think about too. We can't just let everything fall apart because of this," she argued. It felt like a betrayal, but I knew she was trying to keep herself composed, and I admired her strength. Eventually, we had a massive blowout. It wasn't just about the wedding. It was about priorities. "You're going to miss the most important day of our lives," she shouted. I winced, knowing deep down that the irony was, my most important day wasn't the wedding. It was being with my mother. "Ava, I can't focus on a wedding when my mum is fighting for her life. This isn't just a hiccup. This is life and death," I responded, voice breaking. I could see the frustration boiling inside her, and I got it. She had her dreams too, but for me, the reality of losing my mother overshadowed everything else. Tension grew as I tried to support my mother while simultaneously handling the mounting pressure from Ava. When I finally told Ava that I couldn't attend wedding appointments until my mum was better, she lost it. "You're choosing her over us. It feels like she's more important than our future," she yelled, tears streaming down her face. I stood there, reeling from the accusation, the warm air in the hospital room turning cold and heavy between us. For weeks, I juggled time between the hospital and home. My mother's condition worsened, and our conversations shifted toward goodbyes. It was heart-wrenching, but I was there. Every moment counted. But there came a point when I had to face the consequences of my actions. With our wedding date growing closer, Ava insisted we have a conversation about it. She walked into my mother's hospital room with a hesitant demeanor. "I'm really worried," she started, her voice trembling. "I can't go on like this. Mark, we're not even planning for the wedding anymore. You've made it pretty clear where your priorities lie." It hurt to hear her say that. I loved Ava, but how could I possibly put a wedding before a dying mother? "Ava, this isn't about prioritizing. This is about being there for someone who raised me and fought for me all my life. I just need more time." Her face twisted in frustration, and I could see how desperately she wanted to be understood, but she just couldn't see my perspective. "I can't keep waiting around, Mark. This wedding means everything to me." I took a deep breath, somehow steeling myself against the betrayal I felt by the person I thought would respect my situation. "You knew how close I was to my mom when we got engaged. You knew what it meant to me. I'll always be there for my family, Ava. Don't you want me to do that? Wouldn't you want the same if it were your mom? I don't want to lose you because you're so tied up in grief that you can't see how bad this is for us. We could have had an incredible life together, Mark, but you're throwing it away." That was when it hit me. Her disappointment, her anger. It wasn't just about the wedding anymore. It was about how she perceived my commitment to our future together. I finally realized how alone I felt, entrenched in a reality that, as much as I wished, didn't include the life I had envisioned with Ava. 2 days later, I got the call. My mother had passed quietly during the night. I was in the middle of an argument with Ava about the logistics of the wedding. The call cut through, all of that, like a knife. I dropped everything and rushed to the hospital. The stillness of the room stopped me cold as I entered. The machines were silent, and my heart sank. Ava arrived shortly after, a mix of emotions on her face: concern, confusion, and a hint of anger. It felt palpable, a storm brewing beneath the surface. "Mark, are you okay?" she asked cautiously. I shook my head, tears spilling down my cheeks. "No, she's gone." The reality of the situation hit harder than anything I could have prepared for. It felt like the world was crumbling around me, and in that moment, nothing else mattered. Ava tried to console me, but I pushed her away. "Just give me a moment, please. I need to process this," I said, my voice trembling. The days that followed were a blur of grief. I buried my mother and decided to pack away the remnants of a life I thought would last forever. I realized then that I could not concentrate on a wedding. I needed time to mourn, to reflect on life, to find myself again, after losing the person who had molded me into who I was. But that meant I had to confront Ava. I called her, my heart pounding. "I need to talk," I said when she answered. "What about, Mark?" she demanded, her tone sharp. I knew the hurt remained fresh from the last fight we had. I took a deep breath, preparing myself for the hardest conversation of my life. "I can't move forward with the wedding. I lost my mother, the person who meant the world to me, and I need time to grieve. I'm sorry if this feels unfair, but I need to put my focus there." A silence hung between us, sharp and heavy. I could sense resentment bubbling beneath the surface. "You think I'm the bad guy for wanting something that should have been about us. But guess what, Mark? You made your choice. You were never going to be able to choose both, and now I'm left here with nothing." Her words felt like daggers. I wanted to scream, to fight back with every ounce of strength I had. But I felt hollow, a mere shell without my mother. "Maybe I am the bad guy, Ava, but I have to be honest with myself. I don't think I can be the person you need right now." "I'm too broken," I responded, my throat tight. She paused long enough for me to hear her ragged breathing. "Do you want this to be over?" "I don't know if it's over, but I can't pretend everything is fine. I just lost my mum. I need to heal." Just like that, our relationship shattered. A thin glass ornament dropped and crashing onto unforgiving porcelain floor tiles. It was over, albeit not how I expected it to end. In losing my mother, my beacon, my guide, I also lost a huge part of my future. I didn't regret choosing her in those final days she had left. I truly believe I made the right decision. I wanted to be there for her, just as she had always been there for me. Months later, even as life resumed its inevitable course, the wounds remained. I could often picture her laughing face in my mind, recalling our walks in the park and her unwavering presence during my darkest times. I had chosen to love her fiercely during her last moments, and while relationships ebb and flow, the bond I had with my mother was irreplaceable. In the end, I guess the verdict is still out. A couple of close friends reassured me that family comes first. Others, those who only see the surface, might think I'm the villain for letting go of a future because of love that felt so real at the time. But for me, the significance of that love was indistinguishable from my grief, just as my memories of my mum will always be the ultimate measure of my choices. So, aita? I don't know. But I do know that loving fiercely sometimes means making tough decisions and prioritizing what really matters in life, be it family or the promise of a future, however bittersweet that promise may be. Am I the a-hole for choosing my child over my sister? My name is Sarah, and I'm a 32-year-old single mother to my 6-year-old son, Noah. I have always prided myself on being a devoted parent, making decisions rooted in my love for him. I never imagined I would find myself in a position where my choices could potentially fracture my relationship with my sister, Emily, but that's exactly where I am now. Emily and I have always had a close bond, despite our differences. I'm the studious one who loves quiet evenings with a book, while Emily is the vibrant social butterfly, always the life of the party. Living in the same town has kept us connected, and while I had Noah quite early in life, she embraced her independence. For Emily, life revolved around her career and her own freedom. Things started to change when news broke that she was getting married. As excited as I was for her, I couldn't ignore the whirlwind of emotions brewing beneath the surface. The venue was a lavish hotel. The guest list included influencers and socialites, and everything was perfect. A stark contrast to my own modest wedding plans, should I ever decide to get married. Her big day came, and somehow I felt the pressure of expectation weighing on me. It hadn't helped that she assumed I would be her maid of honor, expecting me to juggle a child's needs alongside the demands of the wedding. On the surface, it all seemed manageable, until it wasn't. Noah had been diagnosed with a rare condition a few months prior. It's not life-threatening, but it does require certain lifestyle adjustments, especially concerning his diet and routine. He struggles to vocalize his feelings about it, often leading to bouts of frustration and anxiety. As a mother, I've had to be the fortress, the calm in his storm, which made the prospect of being away from him during that hectic wedding week feel impossible. When I approached Emily about my concerns that summer day to discuss my role at her wedding and how Noah needed my full attention, she didn't take it well. "Sarah, it's just a weekend. You really can't get someone else to take care of him," she laughed dismissively. "You know how important this day is to me. I thought I could count on you." I felt the pressure rising, and with it, the realization that I had a choice to make. It was excruciating to think about disappointing my sister. But I also knew Noah's needs had to come first. I suggested that I could still help organize things but wouldn't be able to attend. And in a moment of bravery to protect my child, I told her I would have to decline the maid of honor position. Her reaction was nothing short of devastating. "So you prioritize your difficult child over your own sister's wedding? Wow, thanks a lot, Sarah." She stormed off, leaving me shocked and guilt-ridden. I attempted to reach out to calm the situation, only for my calls and texts to remain unread for days. The wedding day came, and I remained adamant about keeping Noah at home with a trusted babysitter while I busied myself with a stack of tasks that required my attention. I sent my sister a message, wishing her love and happiness, and for the first time in years, the silence was palpable. A week passed, and each day dragged longer than the last. I watched our social media feeds fill with endless wedding pictures. Emily, looking radiant, her husband smiling, surrounded by family and friends, while I felt the ache of missed connection deepen. Visits turned into a ghost town between us, and I knew she was hurt. I told myself I was in the right. I had to keep Noah safe, mentally and physically. Was I wrong, though? Then, a couple of weeks later, something happened. Emily showed up on my doorstep, unannounced. My heart skipped a beat, and for a moment, I thought maybe she had come to reconcile. But that hope faded as soon as I saw the disappointment etched across her face. "Can I come in?" she said curtly, her usual warmth replaced by an icy facade. I nodded and opened the door, both nervous and curious. "I received your message after the wedding. I wished I could have seen you there," she said, hands on her hips. "Emily, I began, but she cut me off. "Sarah, this was a huge milestone for me, and to feel rejected by you, it hurt. I would have understood if you had tried to make it work." "I did try, Em. You know I would have come if I could." Noah was unwell, and he needed me. There was no way I could leave him. I felt my voice trembling, but I stood my ground. She narrowed her eyes, a mixture of hurt and anger dancing in them. "Or maybe you just didn't want to. You find it so easy to put him first, don't you? What about your own life, your own family?" "It's very much my life and his, Emily. You don't understand the burden I carry. It's not easy." I could feel my own frustration boiling over, manifesting in hot tears that began to leak. "I know it's hard for you to see, but that's my reality. He's my priority, and I can't apologize for that." Her expression softened slightly, but the tension hung heavy between us. You might find that someday you'll regret not being part of those moments in my life. Being a part of family means sacrifices. I can't believe you chose him over me. In that moment, I felt a vortex of emotions: guilt, sadness, anger. I knew she was right. Family had always meant sacrifice. We had sacrificed so much together in our younger years, but now we stood apart, their worlds colliding in a bitter rift. In the following weeks, we tiptoed around each other, exchanging awkward pleasantries at family functions or candid moments, with forced smiles. Secretly, I wondered if I was the antagonist in our story, causing irreparable damage to the bond we had shared for so long. It was during one dinner at our parents' house months later that the bubble finally burst. I had finally convinced Noah to join me, hoping that having him around might thaw the frozen air of discontent. As he chatted away, oblivious to the tension surrounding us, Emily suddenly turned to me. "Hey, did you see my latest post about the charity gala this weekend? You could bring Noah along, make a family thing out of it." She feigned enthusiasm, but to my ears, it only sounded sarcastic. "No thanks. He wouldn't enjoy it." "He gets overwhelmed in noisy environments," I replied, my heart racing for a moment. "But if there's another event, maybe you could come over like we used to." "That's really the best you can come up with?" she scoffed, rolling her eyes. "Can't you see that he is the reason we drift apart? You give him all your time, neglecting our family in the process. You're suffocating him, Sarah." Her words cut deeply, shifting my anger into profound sadness. Don't the two of them deserve time and space to grow? "No! If you think I'm doing this to him, you're wrong. I just want to protect him. I'm sorry it worked out this way, but I'm not going to keep apologizing for choosing my son." Being a single mother had built walls around my heart, some as shielding as iron, some as fragile as glass. The walls that stood between us had begun to shatter, spilling our love and hurt onto the floor, and our family's delicate balance hung by a thread. I took a step back, fighting the tears that threatened to fall as I glanced back at Noah, who was still lost in innocent chatter. A sudden wave of guilt swept over me. "I really need to go," I muttered, gathering Noah's things, feeling the weight of Emily's gaze burning into my back. As weeks rolled into months, a sliver of silver lining began to emerge. Life, with all its messiness, pushed me to open up conversations with Noah about his feelings surrounding his diagnosis. I enrolled him in therapy, and alongside it, my heart began to unfurl with warmth as we bonded over shared experiences and struggles, even as he navigated his emotional landscape. One afternoon, out of nowhere, I received a surprise message from Emily. It read simply, "Can we talk?" Hoping for the best, but expecting the worst, I took a deep breath and responded with mere words. "Yes." We chose a cozy coffee shop at a distance, and when she walked in, my heart raced. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, her eyes scanning the room as if looking to find comfort in the smell of brewing coffee. Without prejudice, we talked. Once furious words gushed like a river that had held its breath for far too long, pushing us back towards the soul of our bond. Emily opened up about her own feelings of inadequacy, the stark shadows her career had cast on her dreams of family. I shared my own battles regarding Noah's condition, how every decision to safeguard him came from love. For the first time, we moved beyond our roles as sisters and found humanity in each other's struggles. We crossed the bridge from hurt, and as the conversation reached its end, Emily looked into my eyes, her voice breaking slightly. "I've been selfish. It will always be easy for me to say, 'I need you,' without considering what you need. I want to be part of Noah's life, but I can't impose my desires on you." In that moment, I realized we had both succumbed to the same perilous inclination, prioritizing our own needs over the love we held for each other. Sometimes, the threads of love get tangled. They don't fall apart entirely, but become complex knots instead. From then on, there were many meetings that led to laughter again, and Emily began to gradually build a relationship with Noah, weaving the patchwork of our family back together. Each of us took the time to understand the other's heart more deeply, and slowly but surely, the distance that had separated us diminished. As I sat watching Emily play with Noah at the park one sunny afternoon, I felt grateful for every wrong turn that had brought us together again. It didn't always have to be about choosing one over the other. Sometimes, life was about running toward each other, celebrating the vibrant tapestry of family we were capable of being. Am I the a-hole for cancelling my sister's wedding? Story. I never thought I would find myself posting on a platform like Reddit for validation, but here we are. My name is Clara, and I'm a 30-year-old woman who has always prided herself on being the peacekeeper in my family. My sister Lila is 28, and while we've always had our differences, nothing could have prepared me for the events of the past few months. It all began when Lila announced her engagement to Tom. Tom is great on paper, charming, ambitious, and, to be blunt, he comes from a wealthy family. However, I've never liked him much. Something about how he spoke to Lila just rubbed me the wrong way. He had this way of looking at her that made me uncomfortable, like she was a trophy he was proud to display. Despite this nagging feeling, I shoved my opinions down and resolved to support her, believing that love transcends everything. As the prep for the wedding began, I found myself inundated with duties. Lila asked me to be her maid of honor, and I naturally accepted. That's when I noticed how increasingly demanding she had become. Lila delegated her decisions to me, from choosing the venue to finding the right shade of pink for the bridesmaids' dresses. I tried my best to make her happy. I didn't want her to feel overwhelmed. After all, wedding planning is notoriously stressful. But the thrilling bliss of wedding planning soon morphed into a nightmare. Lila's stress morphed into volatility, and I became her emotional punching bag. One evening, after an argument about the arrangement of the centerpieces, Lila yelled at me, saying I didn't comprehend the weight of this once-in-a-lifetime moment. "I have to get it right," she shrieked, tears streaming down her face. "Every detail matters. You have no idea what it's like to plan a perfect wedding." Though I tried to empathize, I couldn't help but feel a flicker of resentment. I was trying the best I could while suppressing my own life's commitments. Weeks went by, and if her treatment of me wasn't enough, I also began to notice how Tom would always subtly undermine Lila's wishes, swooping in to change arrangements she had painstakingly set. At first, I brushed it off as just a groom being involved, but soon it became apparent that he had a say in everything. His opinions had started to eclipse hers, as if she was merely a passenger on her own special day. As the wedding day approached, I found out something shocking that changed everything. A mutual friend of ours, Mia, who was in Tom's circle, confided in me about something she had overheard. Apparently, Tom had made some disparaging comments about Lila to his friends prior to the engagement. He had jokingly referred to her as a project wife, indicating that he intended to mold her into his ideal partner rather than appreciating her for who she was. Mia's words hit me like a brick wall, and I felt a deep pit forming in the bottom of my stomach. I knew I had to confront Lila. But how would you tell your sister that the man she loves might not genuinely care for her? It felt like walking on eggshells. After much internal debate, I texted Lila and insisted she meet me urgently. I suggested, we meet at our favorite cafe, the one place where we could talk like we used to before all the chaos of wedding planning ensued. When she arrived, I noticed her eyes were darkened with exhaustion. She sat across from me, and for a moment I hesitated, watching as she twirled her engagement ring, oblivious to the severe storm brewing in my heart. "What's wrong, Clara?" "You look serious," she said, trying to muster a smile. I cleared my throat, my fingers fidgeting nervously with the edge of my napkin. "Lila, I need to talk to you about Tom." Her expression immediately hardened. "What about him?" My heart raced, but I pressed on. "I've heard things that concern me. Mia overheard some comments." I trailed off, gauging her reaction. What kind of comments? Don't tell me you're falling for that cliché about grooms turning into monsters during planning. It's not about that, I exclaimed, barely holding back tears. He referred to you as a project wife, Lila. I think he sees you as someone to fix, not someone to love. This isn't just about wedding planning. It's about your happiness and who you are. I watched her face drain of colour. The laughter and life in her eyes faded, replaced by a burgeoning storm of anger and betrayal. Why would you share something so hurtful? Are you trying to ruin my life? No, I cried in disbelief. I'm trying to protect you. I see how he treats you, how he belittles your choices. I don't want you to feel trapped in a relationship where you're not appreciated. A beat passed before she came back at me. You have always hated Tom. You're just jealous that I found someone when you're single. Why can't you just be happy for me? I felt like I'd been slapped. Lila, my feelings are irrelevant. This is about you. I'm trying to make sure you see things clearly, I whispered earnestly. Maybe I don't need your protection. You're just projecting your own issues on me, she said, raising her voice. The rest of our cafe visit became a chaotic battle of words. I was fighting for what I believed was right while she was entrenched in her view of celebrating love. As she stormed out of the cafe, I felt a part of my heart shatter. The ensuing days were torturous. Lila refused to talk to me, painting me as the villain in her story. I decided to lay low and wait for her to come around, but the situation devolved further. Days turned into weeks and the wedding grew closer. People were saying my name in hushed tones, and I realized she had told everyone about our conversation, twisting it to suit her narrative. With the weight of guilt and fear, I made the difficult call to cancel the wedding. I couldn't bear to see my sister marry a man who didn't cherish her. This was a massive blow. Lila had already sent invitations, booked venues, and allotted non-refundable deposits. But I didn't want to see her thrown into a situation that might endanger her well-being. So, I called Lila and calmly mentioned how I felt it best that the wedding be called off. Suddenly, my phone was filled with notifications as my friends and family reacted to my decision. Surely this had sent shockwaves through everyone's perception. Lila exploded on social media, launching into a series of posts detailing my betrayal, claiming I manipulated her into cancelling her wedding. My heart sank further. I was now the anti-hero of her story, and everyone was rallying to her side. I was bombarded with a flood of messages. You were supposed to be her maid of honor. You're the reason she's devastated. I created a post to explain my side, feeling defeated by my loss in the battle of voices. I wanted clarity, a voice that validated my motivations. But as I scrolled through the comments on Reddit, wondering if I could reclaim some sense of camaraderie, I found myself asking, aita for cancelling my sister's wedding. As I pressed post and waited for responses, I thought about all the moments that led to this. Searching for vindication felt hollow. I could only hope someone would understand the dilemma of watching family members struggle to understand what love truly means while they are blinded by potential. In the end, all I wanted was for Lila to find the happiness she deserved, not the kind built on questionable foundations. Would I be cast as the villain forever? Only time would tell. But as I hit submit on that post, my heart trembled with uncertainty, hoping that my sister would one day forgive me and restore the bond we had lost. Am I the a-hole for not forgiving my sister after she stole my life's dream? I am a 30-year-old woman named Clara, and I've always believed that life is a series of choices that ultimately define who we are and where we go. My life had always revolved around one main goal: becoming a professional ballet dancer. For as long as I could remember, I had spent hours every week at the ballet studio, stretching, practicing, and dreaming of the moment I'd finally step onto a grand stage. It was more than just a career choice for me. It was my passion, my identity. However, life often has a way of throwing unexpected curveballs, and mine came in the form of my younger sister, Ruby. She was 4 years younger than me, a fiery spirit, with an outgoing personality that always seemed to overshadow mine. Growing up, our paths diverged. While I lost myself in the disciplined world of dance, Ruby blossomed into a talented artist, exploring the world through vibrant colors and imagination. For years, I supported Ruby during her art exhibits and encouraged her to explore her dreams, even as I put my own aspirations on a slow burn. Every holiday, every birthday, I would take a break from my dance practice to be her biggest cheerleader. But as we transitioned into adulthood, I felt a subtle shift in our relationship, a feeling that Ruby was not only forging her own path, but also becoming increasingly indifferent to mine. It all came to a head one fateful summer when Ruby, fresh out of art school, landed an incredible opportunity to showcase her work at a prestigious gallery in our city. The exhibition was highly anticipated, and the excitement in our family was palpable. Though I was elated for her, it was bittersweet. You see, that same summer, I had auditioned for a major ballet company that was also set to perform in the city, just months before Ruby's exhibition. While I was busy preparing, pouring my heart into every plié and jeté, everything changed the night of Ruby's exhibition. Just hours before the opening, I slipped on a spilled drink backstage during rehearsals and injured my ankle. The pain sent shockwaves through me, not just physically, but also emotionally, breaking the fragile balance of my world. The doctor confirmed my worst fears, a sprain severe enough to sideline me for weeks. There would be no performance for me, no chance to chase the next step of my dreams. I was devastated. To make matters worse, Ruby's exhibition that night would be the event that people in our family spoke about for months to come. That was exactly the kind of publicity I had hoped my debut performance would elicit. Would I even get another chance at a company audition after this setback? My head spun with worry and resentment, twisting a knot in my stomach. Nevertheless, I went to the exhibition to support Ruby, masking the hurt I felt. I tried to smile as I mingled with our relatives who praised Ruby's talents. But when I looked at her, standing confidently amid the applause, I couldn't help but feel an insidious envy creeping in. Watching her shine while I wallowed in pedestals of disappointment gnawed at my heart. Weeks passed, and my ankle healed just in time for the next round of auditions. At that point, I was filled with desperation. I had to perform well. However, I learned that Ruby's exhibition had led to her own set of remarkable opportunities. She was contacted by an art dealer in New York who wanted to showcase her work in a gallery there. I was simultaneously proud and furious. Why couldn't it have been me? As if the universe was asking for my sacrifice so my sister could soar. Finally, audition day came. I poured everything into that performance, but my spirit felt weighed down by the lingering bitterness. I was rejected. The news hit me like a ton of bricks. I had spent most of my life working toward this dream, only for it to slip away in the blink of an eye. In the aftermath of that brutal blow, our once close bond shattered. I became resentful, and I couldn't hide it anymore. It festered inside me, consuming me slowly. I distanced myself from Ruby, who, in her joyous whirlwind, failed to notice the dark cloud brewing within me. Then came the moment that forced me to take a step back and confront my emotions. At a family gathering, I overheard a conversation between our parents, praising Ruby's work and how proud they were of her. Those words cut deep. I snapped, spilling my frustrations in a moment of weakness. Why is it that everything is about Ruby? I shouted, the words tumbling out before I could catch myself. I've dedicated my life to dance, and I got hurt. But the moment something amazing happens to her, you all just forget about me. The room fell silent. It was as if I had thrown a grenade into our family dynamic. Everyone stared at me in shock. Ruby's eyes widened, and the anger quickly painted her features. "Clara, you're being ridiculous," she retorted, her voice tinged with hurt. "I worked hard for this too. It's not my fault you got injured." I regretted saying those words almost immediately, but once unleashed, my emotions had taken control. The night spiraled into chaos, our parents trying to mediate, but only making things worse. I stormed out, feeling like an ungrateful sister who had betrayed her family. After that night, I rationalized my actions by thinking I was the victim of circumstance. I justified my resentment toward Ruby, believing that she had it easier than I ever had. I didn't reach out to her for months, refusing to acknowledge her accomplishments and drowning in my envy. Ruby took the high road, continuously reaching out, sending me invitations to her shows, messages of greetings, and trying to reconcile. But I turned her down every time. I was stuck in a cycle of victimhood, refusing to accept that my own misfortunes were partly due to choices I made. As seasons changed, I started to feel the weight of my isolation. I missed our late-night discussions over hot chocolate, our shared laughter, and the warmth that once defined our sisterly bond. But pride is often a hindrance, and admitting fault felt even more insurmountable than my envy. Then one day, weeks before Ruby's follow-up show featuring her New York exhibition, I received a text from her asking if I could meet. I stared at the message for what felt like an eternity. My heart raced. Fear swirled within me. What if she wanted to confront me about everything? What if she wanted to simply say goodbye and cut ties? But curiosity overpowered my apprehension, and I agreed to meet her at a cafe. When I arrived, I found her seated, hands wrapped around a cup of tea, looking grown-up yet vulnerable. "Thanks for meeting me," Ruby began, her voice calm, devoid of any anger. "I know things have been strained, and I wanted to talk." As she spoke, my heart sank. She shared that her New York project was both a triumph and a challenge. She had faced her own obstacles, and all she wished for was to share her journey with me. Not to overshadow mine, but to inspire. "I've missed you, Clara," she finally confessed, tears brimming in her eyes. "I hate that we've drifted apart. I never wanted for you to feel like you lost something because of me. You will always be my biggest inspiration." In that moment, something broke inside me. The walls I had built came crashing down, revealing the insecurity I had hidden for so long. I had blamed Ruby for my failures, but I had been too wrapped in my own pain to see her struggles. "Ruby, I choked, fighting back my own tears. "I wish I was happy for you. I let my envy cloud my judgment. I'm sorry for how I've treated you." The relief in her expression was palpable. We embraced like we hadn't in years. The warmth of the moment melted away the bitterness. It was a small step, but it felt monumental in healing our bond. However, I knew that forgiveness was not just a single moment, it was a process. And as I walked away from that cafe, I realized that I wasn't just choosing to forgive Ruby. I was choosing to forgive myself. I was responsible for my own dreams, setbacks, and ultimately for finding joy in what other people achieved. In time, we rekindled our sisterly support. I attended her New York exhibition, sitting front row and clapping the loudest when she unveiled her piece inspired by our childhood. And she promised to finally come and watch me perform in a local ballet if I ever took the stage again. In the end, we learned that dreams might differ, but love and support should never waver. Because while life throws curveballs, it is the connections we hold dear that lift us up. So, was I the asshole? Maybe. But in choosing empathy over envy, I found redemption in sisterhood, and if that isn't a remarkable journey in itself, I don't know what is.